people, welcome back to ToyinTube. It's your girl Toyin again, giving you another special edition on my show. I'm sure you know this face. He's not new to the show, alright. So his name is Berne.
Hello everyone, I'm Berne. This time around I'm a bit expert.
Even though we're laughing, but it's quite serious because you are kind of the expert on this. Well, unfortunately, the expert. Let's put it that way. But anyways, we'll get there. So today we're going to be talking about why it's generally unexpected of men, or should I say generally unacceptable for men to grieve. All right. So grieve is something, Berne. Grief is something that happens to everyone, irrespective of gender, irrespective of age. It happens at some point in our life. Everyone will go through grief, whether we like it or not. Right. Even if you tell yourself, I'm not one of those, I've never experienced it. One day, your mom will die, or your friend will die, or your dog will die. You will lose someone, even if they don't die, I don't know. So grief happens to everyone. Grief basically is intense sadness, intense sorrow. In fact, sometimes grief is something that you feel that is so unconsolable. And when you think about those definitions, these are not something that are gender based. No, so sure. Whether you're a man or a woman, you will feel these at some point, all right? So people go through grief for different reasons. Someone's wife has died, someone's mom has died, someone's brother, sister, husband, dad, dog. It could even be that someone has just gone through divorce. You know, it doesn't always have to be about death or the loss of life alone. Grief happens when you've broken up with someone, and some people actually go through breakups as if they've actually lost someone to the other side of life. You know, it's that bad. The feeling is so intense. You feel like your soul is ripped from you. Or it could be divorce, like I said earlier on. So it's not necessarily the loss of life alone. People go through grief for other reasons other than loss of life. So to think that you wouldn't expect, or to think that society really kind of frowns on men expressing grief, I'm still trying to get my head around it. So whether it's unacceptable or it's unexpected, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it comes from society's expectation of men to be very stoic and to be very get over it, like be a man about it. And you know, that thing is said a lot with regards to men, with regards to religious society. I feel like just the generous expectation of what a man should be able to handle, like as a man should be able to handle this, you should be able to handle grief. And for that reason, it makes it difficult for people to express themselves. And it's not just in terms of just grief, also in terms of maybe things like even happiness, love, all those kind of things. I remember how someone like Tom, what's the name of that actor? Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. Yeah. The way he was chastised for expressing his love on Oprah, you know.
To who? Love? He expressed his love.
His love to his
ex-wife.
Yeah.
Oh really, Katie?
Yeah, Katie Holmes, right? I mean, people felt like it was doing too much. Some salt on the sofa, all of that. People felt like it was doing too much. But it's one of those that, as a result of us as a people observing how other people are treated.
I kind of agree with you. I think you said earlier on about how society expects men to be stoic, or maybe not necessarily even society expecting men to be stoic, but by nature, men come across like that anyway. So it's sometimes you can't really blame society for some things that they expect, because I think the way we are wired as women and as men is kind of different, and that over time forms an opinion, or should I say generally acceptable norm, or I don't know how to put it now. It drives what society thinks about each gender, if you get what I mean. So if, for instance, if you have kids just being kids, playing and mucking about, and every child, every generation does that, they're being playful, messy and all of that. at some point, society comes to accept children are messy, children are playful. So the same thing happens with men. If men always come out to be, maybe we're always the tough ones, we're the... Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I disagree completely.
Okay.
And the reason I do is, I feel like it's one of those things that already scientifically it's been proven false. Men are not expected to be a certain way. I feel like...
Are you sure though?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So in psychology now, we're beginning to understand even more. I'm not a psychologist, by the way. I just studied
I was gonna ask you.
I just studied psychology in college, so you know, I'm not a psychologist. Let me just give you a disclaimer right there.
Okay.
But the point is that it's already proven that everyone as individuals have their own approach, have their own methods of dealing with situations, but because of stereotypes and schemas, people get pigeonholed, and you know, it's also a huge cause of mental situation. And the more we begin to understand mental illnesses and the root causes, the causal effects of things, it's starting to become more apparent that yes, like we human beings are not meant to be pigeonholed into as this member of society. This is what's expected of you, or for you to bear the brunt of the of people falling short of an expectation that's been put on, maybe over time, over generations, has been put in place to, and you know, this is especially true of women. Like, you know, up until very recently, with the feminist movement, women have been expected to be in some type of gender roles, and to be in some type of, and there's been this heavy weight of expectation leveled on them, and now people are beginning to cast away, you know, those yokes and saying, no, we're not going to accept that. As a woman, I could be a leader. As a woman, I could be a founder. I don't have to just be a homekeeper. And now we have men who are homekeepers, and you know, again, we have a situation where it's kind of frowned upon. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, you know, this kind of things again, as society, are kind of frowned upon. But I feel like people are beginning to open their minds and their hearts more to understanding that. I feel like everyone has a choice on how they deal with things. And I take it back again to the grief aspect of, you know, as a human being, you should be able to feel whatever you want to feel, regardless of situation.
Absolutely.
And not be dictated upon and imposed upon what you must do in this scenario. And often at times, these things are referenced by, this person never did that, and this person that will hold an high esteem, this one person that as a people, as a society, as wherever it is, because they never did that, you must not do that. Therefore, it kind of just disables people from being able to experience, deal with, and get through situations. And things that will cause what you call a repression. Yeah. And very often repression would lead to depression or explosions, unexpected. And for that reason, I disagree completely with as men we must, or as women we must. And I feel like as an individual, what would you like to do regarding this?
It's true. That's very right, because at the end of the day, how I feel about the situation that have brought me grief and how I handle them is different from how you may be able to handle them. So for me, maybe I'm the type that I just want to keep it all in and bottle it up, or maybe I'm the type that wants to scream, yet society is telling me as a man that you're not allowed to scream, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to show your emotions, you know. I feel like it's a bit violating. I'm not a man, but if I was told that as a woman, even,
you hit it around the head.
You're violating my feelings somehow. You're violating my rights.
That's right. And you know, and this comes from a personal experience, by the way. Sadly, I lost my dad, and for me personally, it wasn't just my dad I lost. This is one of my best friends. Yeah. This was my, in a way, leader. He was my role model, and it was also my spiritual leader, my pastor. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like just very. It wasn't the typical, your pop's died. And we have to remember as well, as people, we have a lot of people in our sort of, like as black people, I would say, who maybe never really had a very strong connection with their fathers, especially, that something as that passing may not necessarily carry that much weight. And as a result of that, I think, in my view, it's kind of added to the expectation of, as a man, especially when it comes to someone like your father, you should just get over it as soon as possible. And for me, it was one thing where, on a personal basis, no one could tell me anything, but it was even more irritating to find people trying to tell me how to feel regarding the situation, or to tell me, and especially, it usually comes from people who have never really been through it, who would then want to advise you or even impose on you on.
You're not allowed to cry.
Yeah, you know, you're not.
Maybe from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. when everybody's out, you can try and cry.
I don't think I cried a lot, but I was affected by it. I was affected by it spiritually. I was affected by it mentally. Not to the point of collapse, but in terms of, I had to readjust a lot of my mindset, especially with regards to life and regards to
it gives you a new perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But then you do get a lot of people who don't understand that, and then they don't understand that perspective, and I feel like everything centers around a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
And for that reason, a lot of people come from that point of, I know I should feel about this because I saw a film, or my cousins, uncles, aunties, grandmothers, friends went for this. So. And you know, I'm sure I'm not the only person on the face of the planet that feels that way with regards to how people take things like this. And if what I'm saying could help someone out there who's maybe going through it, or someone who wants to have an opinion or have a perspective regarding someone else's pain, keep it to yourself, keep your mouth shut. Just be understanding.
You know,
have a bit of empathy. You know, and
I think it's very important that we put ourselves in the shoes of others when it comes to. Am I going to say grief is matters of the heart?
Absolutely.
Okay. When it comes to matters of the heart.
Love, grief, all of that.
Yeah. So when it comes to this sort of thing, people should just let other people. At least let the person go into it, let them deal with the situation however possible, however they deem, you know, fit for themselves, you know. What we, the outsiders, really should do, friends, family, what we really should be doing is to just make sure we're there to support them. And not just that, to let them know that it's okay to not be okay. Especially men. We know that men generally...
Major keys. Say that again. It's okay to not be okay.
So, especially with men, I think we'll be fooling ourselves if we say that men are always very outright with their feelings. Men are not really as outspoken as women are.
We're not allowed to come out of our pockets. We're not allowed to express our feelings. We're not allowed to feel a tap way around the situation, because, you know, it's very quickly shut down. And I don't feel like people intentionally mean it to be mean. But it's just what they believe society expects.
Yeah.
For you know, for that to be. And I'm not just talking about grief now. I'm talking about just in general, like in terms of factors that affect the daily life of human beings, and men especially, and how we're expected to cope with it. What we are not allowed to talk about, what we're not allowed to express our feelings on, what we're not allowed to really have an outlook on in terms of, especially vocally.
True. Men have been expected to be the strong ones, whether it's mentally or physically, over years. You know, we've all grown up to see men as the strong one, and women are the weaker sex, like even the Bible calls us. But
does the Bible really call it that way, or just an interpretation? Because don't let me get into the Bible. You'll be all day.
Oh Lord, Berne, I'm going to kill you today. From beginning of time, you know, men have always been deemed to be the stronger ones. So whether it's physically or emotionally or mentally, men have always been deemed to be the stronger ones. So when it comes to grief, like society is not really ready to see a man bawling his eyes out, or keeping to himself, or just doing some other things excessively, maybe going to the gym too much. Oh, since his dad died, since his mom died, he's just been really him and the gym all the time. Maybe that's how he wants to deal with the grief.
Absolutely, and it goes back to the point I made about repression. look, it's like, you know those pressure cookers, right? When you put something explosive in a pressure cooker and you add heat to it, eventually it's gonna explode.
Yeah.
And that's what repression is. So you got all these emotions that are being bottled in,
up, yeah.
and you're adding fire to it. But that emotion is really an explosive one. But you said the little channel, that little I can't remember what it's called. That little thing that the steam comes out of.
Yeah.
The little chimney, I'll call it. You've covered that chimney. You said no, you're not allowed to, have that little chimney. Eventually, you're gonna have an explosion because that steam has come out one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I feel like a guy that goes to the gym a lot, and I'm not saying that every time that's the consequence, but I feel like they need an outlet, and maybe that's the outlet they have to be able to channel out, whatever the feelings they have regarding that particular situation. And like I said, the grief may not necessarily be about death, like you said. It could just be about heartbreak. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And it's just one way that needs to come out. And other people could be violent. And unfortunately, and we can't blame society for everything and say, oh, it's society's fault, but it needs to come out one way or the other.
I think in order to ward against the blow up or blowout, however you want to put it, after repressing the feelings for so long, in order to ward against that, it's good to let men going through grief know that you're there, or that there's support for them, whether it's through other channels, whether it's just you being a friend wanting to lend a helping hand. It could be maybe a single dad maybe a man who's just lost his wife, now he's left with 2-3 kids, now he's a single dad. So it could be that you just want to be able to help out and show that support and say, okay, you know what, now you're left with these 3 kids, let me see if I can maybe help with picking them up from school. These sort of things will help them also to deal with the grief.
But let's start with baby steps.
Rather than, what's that?
Let's start with baby steps.
Such as?
Safe space. I feel like...
Look, there are different scenarios. The example I've just given is about a man who's just lost his wife. It could be just giving them space, like you said, letting them know that there's a safe haven here. It could be anything. I'm just saying.
Support, yeah.
The support has to be there, and support can come in any form.
You're right. Absolutely right. I agree, 120,000%. There has to be that support element, and support, I feel that starts from understanding, empathy, and then
you don't have to be, you don't have to be capable of empathy only when you've been through it.
Very true. Very true.
We just have to be. We have to have a high level of sensitivity to issues to be able to be empathetic with people.
We should develop, in as much as we develop our IQs, we should develop our EQs as well.
Yeah.
That emotional intelligence is very, very crucial for us evolving as human beings. I think, this is my view regarding it. I feel like people with high emotional intelligence, will be able to pick up that very quickly and very easily, and be able to act on it in support of people who are going through situations. And I won't say just grief alone. People going through mental situations, people going through emotional situations, even spiritual situations, and physical too. I feel like our empathy for that. I understand.
The person who is not even allowed to really just be themselves and exhibit whatever emotions they have, the way they want to. How would that even not? How should I say it now? How would that even not become so worse at some point that a man is driven into mental breakdown, emotional breakdown, spiritual breakdown? So all of these things that you mentioned can be linked to grief if it hasn't been managed properly.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the point I'm making regarding emotions, as for however long we've known, been linked to weakness, especially for men. Is that's a woman's job to be emotional.
Imagine that.
It's a woman's job to be hysterical, based on, there was all this myth about the moon and a woman's periods and all of this nonsense and linked to hysterics and so on and so forth, and that men we don't have that capability because we don't menstruate. Therefore, why should you show emotions? So as a result, when you equate emotions and weakness and you put on the same scale, it's very, very difficult, near impossible for men to then exhibit that because he's a weak guy. Cut him off, cull him, you know. This is Sparta. He doesn't make the cut, you know. And I feel like as we evolve, it's something that we should start looking at emotions as not weaknesses, but find the strength in it.
Yeah. Yep. So my next question is, what are the other ways you think that people can actually give support to men who are grieving?
So let me be idealistic regarding this. I feel like universally, like, we should all as human beings develop empathy.
Yeah.
So of that empathy will come that level of understanding of creating a safe space, because not everybody may be able to physically support you.
Yeah.
But just being able to.
And let's be fair, some people are not good at it. It's not like they're wicked or mean, but they're just not good at supporting other people.
So I feel like we should, as people, develop a question of how do you feel? Because if anything starts from there, I feel like it can be really helpful, because I feel like a lot of people want to talk about things that's going on with them. Now, this is just not about grief per se. It could just be whatever's going through their minds at that particular point in time, and just needing that safe space to be able to talk about it. And I think if people are given a chance or the opportunity, and if you don't feel like you are that kind of person that should be that people can seek solace in, then no matter what far, just give them space.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like as people we need somebody or something, or maybe develop an app that, you know, people could just share their emotions with.
Yeah, but then talking about an app, that kind of is then is tending towards this whole everything being dependent on technology now, because technology has a way of making people to be detached from reality and from that human contact. And I feel like if you're going through grief, I would rather not involve technology in it. You need that one-to-one contact with people. Absolutely.
I agree completely. I feel like there has to be a level of intimacy with regards to how people express their emotions. And when I say app, maybe not something robotic, maybe something that will just connect people to people who are ready to listen, who are ready to pay attention, who are ready to emotionally support at the least. And perhaps match people to people who can physically, you know, support them. And you know, this is not just necessarily about grief alone. It could be about loneliness, especially for older people. It could be about heartbreak. You know, it could be about just anything that people have on their minds that's really weighing them down, and needing a channel to be able to express that. At least, first of all, I feel like a very good way to start would be to talk about it. But I feel like as we human beings, I mean, me personally, I don't have the patience to sit through someone telling me about, you know, what's wrong with them. If it's not summarized in 10 seconds, I probably lose interest. So I feel like maybe, but there are people as well who are dedicated to things like that. And also, you know, we currently have means of providing that. So the Samaritans are very good for things like that. The other names, I'm sorry if I can't remember them right now, but yeah. And I feel like as people, especially men, don't be afraid to make that call if you feel like you need to, because sometimes we're guilty. Guilty is that word? Sometimes we're mentally, I would say, brainwashed into thinking, oh, you should just find a way internally to deal with your situation, and you know, don't bother anyone with it. I feel like it's a wrong way. And having lost someone to suicide as well, like I would definitely say, if you are going through, you know, something which you feel you wish to speak to someone about, don't be afraid to pick up a phone and dial the number, Samaritans or any other charity out there that have people who are trained to listen, and speak to someone and get help ASAP.
Do you know, I was watching the video was it last week, some days ago, I can't remember. I think someone sent it to me on WhatsApp or so, or maybe I saw it somewhere online. I can't remember now. But there was this guy. I don't know what he was going through because it was a CCTV image, and maybe it was grief, maybe it was maybe it was grief from heartbreak, maybe it was grief from whatever. I don't know. It could be anything. But you could see in the video that he was agitated. He was distressed, and all of a sudden, by the way, it was on a train platform. So it was just fighting, and I think he even he hit the wall at some point, and then there was this couple walking past him with their baby in a pram, and you could see that the woman felt a bit concerned, and the man was like, "Come on, let's go, mind your business." Obviously, we couldn't hear what they were saying, but his body language and how they were yanking each other was like, okay, we could tell he didn't want her getting involved, and I don't blame him. I can't sit down here and say the guy is a bad person, no. Because we know what UK is like. Sometimes even what doesn't concern you, if people make it your business, you might be the one losing your life. That guy could turn around and stab them or do whatever. Right. So I understand why the husband would want to just mind his own business and keep going. But the woman, so they walked past him, and then the woman she wasn't feeling easy with herself. And then when she turned back, she looked at the guy and tried to walk towards him. And as she was walking towards him, that was when the guy got up, because as he was throwing tantrums, whatever he was throwing, he went down. He bent down like that. So as the woman was trying to walk back to him, that's when he got up, and the train was just coming. He was like this, as in about to jump into the tracks. I think the train must have missed him by a hair strand. The woman just yanked him back from there, and that was what saved the guy's life. So if he had someone to speak to, I don't know what he could have been going through, whatever mental issue. But I sometimes, let me just say this: I can never put myself in position of someone who wants to take their own life, because I've never got to that stage before, and I pray to never get to that stage. Amen. So I'm not going to sit down here and say I understand what they're going through, but I know that I myself have been to points in my life where I feel like my brain is not taking some things anymore. I feel like, what, I've had enough. Not had enough to the extent that I want to take my life, but but I know that the human mind is very volatile like that, and we switch very easily. When we can't bear things anymore, our brains just makes a U-turn, and at that point you don't know what you're capable of doing until you get to that point. So whatever was going through his mind, I don't know, but that woman was there right there that day to save him. Oh, I remember now, I saw it on TikTok. So that woman was there to save him that day. So, but again, what I'm trying to say or bring out of this is there needs to be more, should I say, publicity about channels where people can get help from if you don't have anyone you think you trust enough to speak to about things that you're going through, especially as we're talking about grief with men, So again, it's not just grief, it's anything that brings grief to your heart. You need to find ways to, let it out. I find when I'm say things like getting angry, for instance, I find myself to feel better after talking. I know talking is a type of a therapy. It's therapeutic for me. So when I talk about my issues, it makes me feel better. And I feel like that should be the same thing for everybody. Absolutely. And that's why we have Samaritans.
Research about, I think men are twice as likely to commit suicide
than
women.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of ways to do with this, the not being able to talk about it, not being able to get help for it, not feeling like there are any solutions out there that could be helpful.
Yeah.
And speaking of this topic, right? I was unfortunate to witness someone jump in front of a train earlier this year.
Really?
Yeah, in
wow.
Woolwich Arsenal.
Did they die?
Thankfully, he survived. Thankfully, so again, it was very random. It was just everyone was standing on the platform, and the train was approaching, and just leapt out, unannounced, unexpectedly, and thankfully he hit the mirror.
Wow.
His head was smashed open,
wow.
But at the point he got taken away by the ambulance, he was still, alive. So we're very grateful. I hope he's still alive and he's gotten the help he needs. But I say that to say this was a lot of comments of people, during that situation. Majority of people felt it was, a woman walked past and said, "Oh, this guy's so selfish. I'm going to miss my train now." As a result, and that highlights the point of this whole discussion as a whole of our interpretation of situations that people go through. Sometimes need to be toned down. Needs to, and we need to come from a place of empathy. What this person mostly cared about was, if you're going to kill yourself, don't make it. Don't disrupt. Don't disrupt my day. And
don't ruin my day.
And everyone's entitled to their opinion. Don't get me wrong, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I personally feel like that is part of the problem. And there was this I think which is last week. There was this celebrity guy. This one of those reality TV celebrities. I can't remember his name, to be fair. I think it was some situation about him and his ex-girlfriend, and then he made an announcement on social media about if he wanted to take his own life or if he wanted to seek attention, he could do this and that, call a friend to save him, and then a few days after he made an attempt on his own life, or he was about to make an announcement about it. But I'm saying this to say that a lot of the comments regarding this was, "Oh, this selfish guy is doing it on purpose, is only seeking attention." I feel like history would address this once and for all with regards to people who are psychopaths, people who are sociopaths, and how I feel like it's all a mental illness. Someone who's seeking attention, we normalize it, that, "Oh, this person is deliberately doing it." I've seen someone, and maybe I'm very unfortunate to be witnessing so many of these, ills in the world, but I've seen someone have a mental breakdown, and I've seen the way they behaved and the way people reacted to it. It looked like this person was completely in control and was doing it deliberately. It looked like this person was just trying their hardest to mess up everyone's day, mess up everyone's moods, and that they just wanted to seek attention. But then obviously this person got committed and so on and so forth. And I'm saying this to say that we don't understand like mental illness or mental illnesses, and I feel like that's our biggest problem as people, is that we normalize things and we tend to interpret it the way we think it should be, things that someone making an attempt on their own lives and trying to put it on social media, we think they're doing it for publicity, but it's actually a mental illness that needs to be treated. That needs to be addressed.
What part of it is a mental illness? The part of the mental illness itself, or the part of them streaming it?
All of it.
Why do you think it's necessary to stream yourself wanting to take your own life?
Again, we're trying to normalize, and we're trying to look at that perspective of what would I do. And ask people if one's never been through mental illness, you can't dictate how somebody who's going through it should go through it.
Yes, we can't do that.
And the effect of it, the cause and effect of mental illness is a lot of things that we see. Like, take for instance, someone who's obsessive compulsive. Like, we try to normalize and say, "Oh yeah, that's cool," that because we think we have a point of reference for it. Or somebody who has classic narcissism, we think, "Oh, that's normal." But I'm not saying that is, but I'm saying that there's a lot of things that, until we understand the psychology of psychosis, we shouldn't really speak on it. So somebody who's doing that, we try to interpret as it's coming from a place of selfishness. It's coming from a place of wanting attention, but we don't understand the behind the scenes in this person's head. Because even attention seeking on that scale, there has to be something troubling about it. There has to be some form of illness about it. And we need to begin to understand it for that. And we shouldn't look at it and trivialize it and say, "Oh yeah, this person is deliberately trying to do that." I've seen somebody go through mental illness, and I've seen the way I've seen their actions from then on, and I've seen the way people reacted to it, And it's made me address how I look at this kind of situation. And it's made me look at it from a perspective of, oh my God, I did not know this how they behave. The guy that attempted suicide, we were all there. Like, yeah, okay, normal. So we did, a lot of people have interpreted it as, oh, like, what would push you to feel like the way to crave attention is to make an attempt to your life, or even announce making an attempt to your life, can't be normal. And it should never be normalized.
So, in terms of men being strong and all that, and not expected to show emotions or grief or whatever, or experience grief, we must also remember that there are women that are generally expected to throw themselves all over the ground and be crying and wailing and all that, who don't necessarily exhibit those emotions that way. There are women who also bottle things up and they carry on like there's nothing, like they've just been through something, but they carry on as if they're fine. But on the inside, they're probably imploding. So there are women who typically carry on like how society expects men to carry on. So we shouldn't say that this sort of emotions or display of emotions is only unique to this gender or that gender. People should be allowed to express and display display their emotions, especially when it comes to grief. Display their grief however they want to display it, however they want to deal with it. Men should be offered the support when they're experiencing grief, and just let them know that, like I said before, it's okay to not be okay. It's not only women that phrase should relate to. It's also for men. It's okay. Anyone, man, woman, it doesn't really matter. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to just deal with your, don't internalize things. Just try, and if you want to internalize it, if that's how you feel you want to deal with it, who is to say that that's not the right way? Let's just let people know that, okay, you have support, deal with your grief however you want to deal with it. But most important thing is encourage people to not dwell on the emotions and just help them to stand on their feet again and carry on with life as they know it, or as they used to know it. What are your last words?
Get help. What? Get help.
Oh my God, Ben, you're going to give me today. In terms of where men can get help from with dealing with your issues and grief and feelings and emotions, whatever, I am going to display some organizations or places where you can get help from, and they're always there to help, to lend a listening ear. So that's it from myself and Mr. Berne here. You've been a lovely...
For the first time, I'm the expert. Experience is the best teacher. So
and we genuinely pray that your the spirit of your dad lives on.
Amen. Amen.
In the bosom of our Lord.
Amen. And I pray for everyone watching this that you never go through traumatic experiences. Amen. You never go through grief, and Amen. Everybody around you will live in happiness and health and live Amen. Long and prosper.
Amen. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us today. So don't forget to like the video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to the channel. Alright? We will see you next time. Be good and keep safe. Ciao.